Welcome back. This is KTN News Desk and I am Akisa Ondera. Another relief for patients with kidney complications as a second renal dialysis unit opens in Embu County. This is expected to save many patients the agony of seeking dialysis services outside the county. This establishment comes as health experts have raised an alarm over high number of diabetes and hypertension cases, which is attributed to high number of patients with kidney complications in Mount Kenya region.
I think the number of people who need dialysis and who need renal replacement therapy has been underestimated over the years, because like most of our citizens are sitting at home waiting for these symptoms. We don't have regular screening. But Mount Kenya and all the regions around are among the regions with the highest number of diabetes and hypertensive cases.
I have been here for some months. I attended the dialysis here, and I used the county for NHIF here. Here the services are quite okay, and we are treated by our doctors very properly here.
These sessions are fully covered by the NHIF. That is all the schemes of the NHIF, the universal scheme, the civil servants, and any other scheme. And also to encourage patients, at least to encourage people to get regular checkups, at least once in a year, so they can check their status.
Now, destitute Islamic families in far-flung Chari and Cherab wards in Isiolo County now have a reason to smile after Muslim faithfuls in Nairobi donated 5 lorries of foodstuffs for their use during this holy month of Ramadan. Collection of foodstuffs that include maize flour, rice, sugar and cooking oil was facilitated by Star of Hope Foundation, while the transport cost to the 2 remote wards will be met by the Isiolo North Constituency Development Fund Office. Now, the 90-day ban on logging in community and public forests has been extended by a further 6 months. Environment Cabinet Secretary Keriako Tobiko says this is to allow the sector get back on its feet following unsupervised timber felling in the forest. Business owners have, however, expressed that this will cripple what is left of their timber businesses.
For the hundreds of Kenyans earning a living from the timber business, the extension of the 90-day ban on logging in community and public forests for the next 6 months is a traumatic pain. The new order shattering the remaining rays of hope for the businessmen who had to endure major losses soon after the 90-day ban was first implemented on the 24th of February this year.
Kumekuwa pia unakupata customers watu wa constructions ambao zimepanda kwa sababu sasa so millers wanateta pesa miti yao ilifungiwa. They had already paid.
Tuseme sisi vile saa hii wamefuga miezi 6, tena njaa yetu itaongezeka, maisha yetu itakuwa mzito kwa sababu hata tukitokea kwa hii ngeti tunashindwa tutaenda wapi.
Joseph Mureithi dived into the timber sector business 6 years ago, one that happened to turn into a fortune, enabling him to support his family through the hard economic times. He, just like the rest in the industry, is reading from the same script.
Wakati moratorium iliingia tulikuwa na bank loan na hiyo yote sasa hata hatulipi. Sasa ni barua imeanza, kama mimi nimeletewa barua tayari sababu ya kukosa kulipa instrument ya miezi 2.
In his timber yard, the deafening silence has now become normal. The section that was used to store piles of sawn timber now remains empty with pieces of rotten timber. The sawing machine lying idle, as if to parade its sharp blades, and ones that within the next 6 months may lose its worth.
Nilikuwa na wafanyikazi wa 6. Wale nilikuwa nimeandika na casual workers 3. Lakini wa sasa mimi nimebaki mimi peke yangu na kijana yangu.
For Agnes Wangoi, who is a manager at one of the timber yards in Nyeri, the ban, she says, will cripple what was left of her family's business. And even with harvesting allowed in private forests, the quality of the trees do not compare with those in the natural forests.
They don't actually dry up, or the joints don't come up or add up. It was mostly used from 8x2 and the 6x1 and 6x2s. Right now what is available, we are only having the 8x2 sizes, and you can't complete a bed without the 6x1 or a 6x2. And so it is so hard for us.
The initial 90-day ban was arrived at by the government to allow for reassessment of the management of the forest sector in Kenya, following serious concerns of wanton destruction of Kenya's ecosystem. The 6-month extension, according to CS Keriako Tobiko, will allow the appointment of the new board of the Kenya Forest Service and the finalization of the interim reforms implementation committee. However, for workers and business owners in the timber business, it will be a bitter pill to swallow as they'll continue to count bigger losses. Raquel Muigai, KTN News.
That is a conversation I will be having shortly with that extension of that particular ban. But for now, West Pokot County has launched a 12 million school feeding program that targets 78,000 early childhood education learners in the county so as to reduce malnutrition rate and boost enrollment in schools. The program is set to benefit 1,032 public ECD centers in the county, and every learner will be served a cup of enriched porridge meal in the morning and after classes every day. West Pokot County is one of the counties that has high malnutrition and birth rate in the country, and the rollout of the program aims to address challenges of children not attending classes because of hunger.
Kama kaunti ya West Pokot wanakuwa na afya mzuri ili waweze kusoma. Na unajua gavana wetu si mtu wa wivu, ndio maana
tumerelease pesa ya ECD teachings. Vile watoto wamepewa chakula, wamepewa vitabu na walimu, tumewajengea pia model classrooms mbili mali iko. So this time tuna release kesho zaidi ya milioni 100 ile itaenda kwa mashule kujenga ya ujenzi. Committees, tumeita committees watu wawili wakuja, alafu wanapewa hiyo, wanaangalia vile pesa imetumwa kwa account yao, na wanapewa rules and regulations ya kwenda kuhakikisha imejengwa na standards ambayo wizara ya elimu ya national government na elimu ya county government imeleta. And we are going to be serious. Our supervisors are here. Sisi tumeamua kuweka elimu mbele. Tusiweke siasa ya upusi na siasa ya utoto hatutaki kwa mashule. Ndio unaona tumehakikisha vitabu yao, tumenunulia vitabu, tumebrand vitabu ya primary mpaka secondary school, lakini ile ya fasihi, ile ya kusoma ya storybooks ya Kiswahili na storybooks ya Kiingereza, kwa sababu hiyo ndio challenge tuko kwa hii kaunti ya West Pokot.
Kazi yetu ni maendeleo, na mmeona gavana wetu si mtu wa kutembea, si mtu wa kulala residence, yeye 24 hours ako kwa wananchi, si ndio?
Now, Kenya and UK are set to co-host the Disability Summit in London on the 24th of July this year. Speaking at the official launch of the pre-summit conference at the KICD in Nairobi, UK County Director for Department for International Development, Sarah Montgomery, lauded Kenya's efforts towards the inclusion of persons with disabilities and social protection. Chief Administrative Secretary for Labour and Social Protection, Abdul Bahari, reiterated the government's position on supporting persons with disabilities. Bahari says the country has overcome the stigma of persons with disability as evidenced by the elections and appointments of persons with disabilities to public office.
And so we are trying to develop an analytical status. So our guest, Sarah Montgomery. Hello everyone.
Kenya is rightly recognised as a leader on disability inclusion in areas such as legislation, access to education and social protection. I've seen firsthand some of the excellent initiatives that the Kenyan government is supporting. So, for example, earlier this year in January, I accompanied Penny Mordaunt, who's the UK's Secretary of State for International Development, during her visit to Marsabit. There we met Ratina, who is the mother of Daniel, a 9-year-old boy who suffers from multiple disabilities and who needs 24-hour care. Through the 2,000 shillings that Retina receives from the Persons with Severe Disabilities Cash Transfer Programme every other month, she can ensure that Daniel receives the vital treatment that he needs.
It is regrettable to date that compliance in many areas that could otherwise bring forth many benefits for persons with disabilities are proving to be a challenge, and we must come up with strategies to confront this. Ladies and gentlemen, whereas the state is required to ensure progressive implementation of the principles that at least 5% of the members of the public in elective and appointive bodies are persons with disabilities, the response from relevant institutions or bodies is slow or sometimes unavailable.
Well, back to that story on the ban on logging, extension of the moratorium on logging in public and community forests. Press statement, the logging ban was extended. The government declared 90-day moratorium on the ban on logging. And of course, we'll be looking at some of the key points on what that really means. But joining me in studio now is Adera Okudo. She's an energy economist. Thank you very much for joining us here in studio. What does this extension essentially mean for the country?
So the government had initially banned logging in both public as well as private forests. And then a few months ago, the government reversed the ban just for private forests. But, you know, public forests are still, you know, under this ban for the next 6 months. And that means that basically, you know, there's not going to be any, you know, felling of any trees. And it's going to affect the supply chain of makaa and other wood fuels in the country.
So what are some of the alternatives that those whose lives have depended on this business and those who have been using charcoal from their day-to-day activities, what are some of the alternatives they can explore now, given that 6 more months for this ban?
Yes, well, certainly, I mean, I think that there's going to be some displaced jobs as a result of this ban. And, you know, this ban is just a teaser of what's to come further down the line. The world is moving towards, you know, a cleaner climate agenda. And as we know, Kenya is a signatory of the Paris climate deal, and we have to keep our greenhouse gas emissions under a certain limit. So whether this ban happened this year or it happened a couple of years down the line, regardless, I think that Kenyans and the wananchi who are involved in the trade of wood fuels are going to have to re-examine, you know, whether this is a sustainable line of work any longer.
But then should we also engage incentives like reducing the price of kerosene to get people to not use, to discourage people from using charcoal and felling trees?
Absolutely, absolutely. You know, kerosene is an alternative. It's more expensive, you know, of course, than makaa. Kerosene retails, I think the latest statistics, it was about 78 shillings per litre, which is really pricey for the common wananchi. And so, you know, for our lighting needs and our cooking needs, at the moment, there's kerosene, but there's also clean cook stoves. I don't know if you've seen them. They have them in Nakumatt and in some of the other supermarkets, which is, you know, it looks like a jiko, but it's a much cleaner, more efficient way of cooking, which is much better for the environment. Of course, these clean cook stoves retail, you know, very expensively and are also not economically friendly for the lady who's perhaps cooking in her kitchen with her jiko. So, you know, there's an economic, you know, cost to this decision.
So then how do we step in to cushion those that live even below $1 a day from this?
Well, I mean, this is one of those, you know, government policy decisions that they're going to have to make. You know, what is going to be the direction for this country, especially in terms of cooking. Here in Kenya, our highest emitter of greenhouse gases is cooking. You know, a lot of people are using jikos, some are using just, you know, firewood directly. And this is not environmentally friendly at all. And so I think the government is going to have to examine how else can we provide Kenyans with an affordable fuel in which they can still have their lighting and their cooking needs met.
There are already fears that once this ban is out, even with this particular extension, when the 6 months are over and the ban is lifted, that those who have been in the business will do it extensively to just cushion themselves from some of the losses that they would have made in this period. What do you think?
Yes, that is a possibility. At the end of the day, they can also only work within the confines of what the demand is. You know, they can't supply beyond what the demand is. I don't see demand rising after the 6 months. I see demand, you know, staying along the same progression. And so in terms of the suppliers, you know, yes, perhaps some of them will, you know, market more aggressively. Perhaps others will, you know, look for new markets because, by the way, this ban also applies to exporting to neighboring countries. It's not just being enforced within Kenya. So, yeah, there could be some very interesting developments as a result.
But then, as you talk about demand and supply, that once this ban is lifted, maybe the demand won't be as much as it used to be a few months ago. But in terms of just ensuring that the citizens understand why this is happening, do you think there's need for public awareness on these are some of the alternatives you have? So stop using makaa, for instance, because these are the consequences when you do.
Yes, absolutely. You know, and again, this is the government's responsibility. Spread the message, you know, make sure that, you know, the common Kenyan understands why wood fuels are being displaced, how wood fuels are harming our environment, and what the cleaner alternatives are. You know, at the end of the day, all of us have a responsibility to reduce the wear and tear of the environment. Climate change impacts all of us, not just, you know, government officials. So we really need to be more cognizant of climate change, I would say, as a mwananchi. But at the same time, I think governments need to make policies that are directly in line with the needs of the average Kenyan. We understand that there are climate change obligations in, you know, international forums that the government has submitted to. But at the same time, Kenya is still a developing nation. We've not even industrialized. And so some of these fuels are perhaps the most economically viable case for the average Kenyan. So there needs to be a balanced approach between those two, you know, decisions.
Policies that are in tandem with the needs and the capabilities of the common Kenyan.
Yes.
How effective do you think this ban will be?
Well, I think that it's going to be pretty effective. Of course, sometimes there are issues regarding compliance. How are they even going to enforce this ban in, let's say, a forest, you know, 800 kilometers off grid? How will they know somebody's cutting trees down there? Well, as part of the ban, they've also included a clause that those who are transporting even these wood fuels need to have a license and a certificate which states the origin of the wood fuels and states the destination, which means that you can be caught not just in the forest as you're cutting down trees, but on the road as these goods are being transported, which I think makes this a lot more enforceable.
So then do you think we are on the right path as Kenya in terms of going green and just ensuring that we maintain our forest cover?
Absolutely. I think Kenya is doing a very great job. Definitely on the African continent, Kenya has been a leader and a pioneer towards shifting towards a more climate-friendly economy. You know, we saw this last year with the ban on plastics, and this year with the ban on logging. I think it's a very, very good move. Again, though, it needs to be enforced in a way that's aligned with the needs and capabilities of Kenyans.
Thank you very much. I think we'll wrap it up on that note. Kadero Kudo is an energy economist as we just take a look at what the extension of that ban to another 6 months means for the common man here in the country. I want us to take a quick break. We'll be back with sports news. Don't go too far.